Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Astonishing X-Men #1, cover dated March 1995. And this is the new version of Uncanny X-Men, relaunched as a new title, Astonishing X-Men, but by the foregoing creative team of Scott Lobdell and Joe Madureira, returning here after 4 issues away while developing the designs for Age of Apocalypse, which we see here on the cover by Madureira and Tim Townsend. A really excellent cover focusing in on Age of Apocalypse era Magneto, with all of the various X-Men there in the background in their new design costumes. And one thing that is particularly striking about this cover is we're really into the territory now where Joe Madureira is leaning into more of a manga influence on his pencils. There is still discernible an Art Adams influence, but really the body language here of the characters and the posing is distinctively his at this point. So he has come into his own as a powerful and influential penciler in his own right by this point. So enter now the Age of Apocalypse. This is the very first issue of all the new titles after X-Men Alpha. Let's open this one up to the splash page. And it is a really cool splash page here. And the narrative captions are echo, replay, the Chris Claremont's narrative captions from Uncanny X-Men #94, which Fabian Nicieza homaged in X-Men #25, that's Adjectiveless X-Men #25 Volume 2. It begins with the breaking of a man's heart and a searing of his soul. Eric Lehnsherr, known throughout the world, well, this is the echo of Claremont. Eric Lehnsherr, known throughout the world as Magneto, founder of the Astonishing X-Men, the last bastion of hope in a world split asunder by the ravages of a eugenics war between humans and mutants, knows exactly what it is he's asking of his Homo superior comrades this day. He's asking them to die. So that is quite the dramatic opening. And really cool angle here. We've got Magneto standing on the horizon line, and then the various characters standing also in the foreground. We've got Storm here, and very distinctive style by Madureira here with these the heels that she's wearing, the tie-high boots, and various other figures here showing as well, including Morph here. It'll turn out that this is Sabretooth, Nightcrawler here crouching in the foreground, and then I'm not sure who this would be. Could be Quicksilver, in fact. So a very striking opening image. Let's turn now, and what we get here, very excitingly and generously from Joe Madureira, is a double page spread where we get a really good look at all of these various new designs for our heroes. So we've got Quicksilver, Iceman there. I like the way that he's kind of hanging from the wall. He's not he's not kind of forming a fully humanoid ice form with his stronger command of his powers in this alternative universe. Sabretooth, Storm there. Banshee's got a really cool design for his costume. Nightcrawler, of course, and Morph here, who is comically imitating Sabretooth. So there is a little bit of a kind of like a debate here going on amongst the X-Men regarding whether they can trust their fearless founder and leader, and if they can't, as Nightcrawler puts the point, who can they trust? So the title of the story is Once More with Feeling, and the creators are Scott Lobdell, writer, Joe Madureira, penciler, Dan Green and Tim Townsend, inkers. So these first few pages are inked by Dan Green, and I'll point out when Tim Townsend takes over before we go back to Green again. There's a kind of like a tag team running through the issue. Chris Eliopoulos on letters, Steve Buccellato on colours, with separations, that's digital separations by Digital Chameleon. So these are the Astonishing X-Men. And now we're into the story proper. Nice top-down angle here on Magneto. I love the use of lighting in this particular panel as well. And there you get a really good look at, well, not exactly a good look, but you get the sense of Iceman kind of growing out of the wall at the point of his waist. So it's a pretty different use of his power from what we are used to in the regular Marvel universe. I also like the detail of this painting of Magneto on the wall in a different style. It reminded me when I was looking at it in preparation for making the video of John Bolton's style, in fact. And Magneto, after the encounter with Bishop in X-Men Alpha, is of the opinion that their world is not the world as it should exist at all. So Sabretooth is skeptical here. He says, "You're kidding. You're going metaphysical on us." Storm agrees. Sabretooth is right, Magneto. You cannot possibly be this upset about the ramblings of the stranger Bishop, one lone madman. And Pietro, Quicksilver, makes the point, "Sir, we've all grown weary of this never-ending war against Apocalypse and his forces, but to add credence to Bishop's claim, this is all some sort of cosmic accident. To entertain such thoughts is..." And Magneto completes his son's point by saying, "Is what, Pietro, madness? And is it any less mad to believe a handful of mutants might save an entire world?" Great art on this page by Madureira and Dan Green. I love the shadow cast on Magneto's face here as he puts his hand on his son's shoulder. Really nice work. And in the background, some little comic bits as well running through the story, because it is a dark world, one in which there's been massive death and culling of humans by Apocalypse and his quote-unquote son, Holocaust. And we'll learn that there's parts of the world that have been completely destroyed in this Age of Apocalypse reality. But Lobdell's seeding little humorous moments, like Sabretooth finally getting sick of Morph and bopping him in the jaw there in the background. So kind of leavening the darkness with a little bit of humor. And then we're back to the plot, and we have a sudden arrival of Blink. So Blink, of course, someone who died in the regular Marvel universe during the Phalanx Covenant, but alive here in Age of Apocalypse. And she has arrived suddenly, and also coming with her is Sunfire. And I really like the design on Sunfire's costume. The Age of Apocalypse version of Sunfire. Really cool looking. So he's arrived, and Storm says, "So you came here, Clarice, you made the right decision," because they were in the middle of a fight with an Infinite and they weren't winning. So Storm uses her powers to douse the flames set by Sunfire. Let's get past these ads here and back to the story. And then Magneto himself uses his power to grab Sunfire, who to this point is non-verbal. And Nightcrawler makes the observation that his flame is dampening, somehow he's powering down. And really what has gone on here is that Iceman is using his powers to freeze the air around Sunfire. And then he points out, "Look at the portal." And coming through the portal is this prelate. "There you are, Blink," he says, "with the rest of your genetic turncoats." So Blink infers that he must have followed them through the portal, and he grabs Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler can't teleport because he's lost his concentration because he's burning at the touch of the prelate. And so the prelate says here, "At long last, we've discovered the X-Men's most recent base. To think, Blink, we couldn't have done it without you. Tell me what do you want, tell me what do you have to say for yourself?" And she says, "Sorry guys, and see it." So she uses her power here and closes the portal on this guy, and that's the end of him. So Pietro makes the point, "I understand the girl's behavior, Shiro," he's addressing Sunfire, "but what could possess you to risk exposing her?" And Magneto interrupts, "Pietro, please allow him to catch his breath. Sunfire's no coward. If he came here, it was for a reason." And so here we get to an important plot point that will determine what happens in the rest of the issue. "A darker reason than you could imagine, sir," he says. "The latest reported culling, the one in Seattle, which we saw in X-Men Alpha. Apocalypse claimed ignorance in light of the Kelly Pact, did he not? He promised to punish all those involved. Blink and I just discovered he was lying. The cullings have begun again in earnest. These are cullings of human beings, non-mutants. They're being carried out personally by Apocalypse's son, Holocaust." So this is a shock to the X-Men here. And by the way, at this point, Tim Townsend takes over the inking for a few pages. And then we switch to Manhattan. More accurately, what is left of Manhattan, the first American city to fall beneath the boot heel of the man some call Apocalypse. He who was also En Saba Nur, the genetic overlord dedicated to seeing mutant kind achieve its destiny, even if it means building that destiny upon a mountain of humanity's dead. So we have this character here, whose name is later revealed to be Rex, coming forward to Apocalypse, who's sitting atop a throne, which we'll see here when we turn the page. He's sitting atop a throne on a hill of bones. And so Rex is aghast, and he says there must be hundreds of skulls and skeletons. He says thousands, Rex, hundreds of thousands actually. I find the aroma soothing. They were the weak, and such is their fate. But speak, mutant, you are not here to discuss my affectations, are you? So Rex says no. He says that I wanted you to be aware, not that you weren't aware of everything anyway, but I just wanted you to know. I mean, for sure that Rex, get to the point, Delgado made it through the girl's portal, as you assumed he would. And just as you, in your brilliance, predicted, they sealed it on the poor, weak fool as well. Did you pinpoint their location? Not yet, sir, says Rex, but it's certain only to be a matter of time. And I like this little moment. My lord, your face, what's wrong? Nothing, Rex, it's a smile. So very interesting characterization of Apocalypse here in this Age of Apocalypse alternate version. And nice design on his hovering throne here above the hill of skulls and skeletons. And we continue with the Tim Townsend inking when we switch back to Westchester County and the remains of the X-Mansion, which is at this point the secret base of the X-Men, and which Rex is trying to pinpoint. And we have Rogue here in conversation with Sunfire, who's recovering from his injuries. And what's revealed here is that he lost his entire country to Holocaust. Everyone, he says, I ever loved, everyone who ever depended on me. I will die before I see him visit another such horror upon this world. So we're learning as we go along with the story about the nature of this alternative world. And here, that Japan is completely gone and destroyed, the entire country destroyed by Holocaust, Apocalypse's son. So then we have the arrival of Gambit. So Gambit made his way to the X-Mansion in X-Men Alpha, and he's here to say goodbye to Rogue because Magneto has given him a mission. And that mission is it's to do with the Macran crystal. Where does he talk about it? Yeah. It's coming up at a certain point. Blink makes the point here. I thought the Magster sent you and your little group of externals on some secret mission. That he did, but he's here anyway to bid a proper adieu to Rogue. And Blink doesn't like Gambit because Gambit and Rogue in this reality had a previous relationship, but it was a love triangle between Rogue, Gambit, and Magneto. And Magneto won in the sense that he married Rogue and they have a child who Magneto has named Charles. So Gambit is making the point that Rogue is going out to risk her life to stop the unstoppable. That's to stop the culling of humans in Chicago by Holocaust. And she says, well, that she'll die trying. And he says, that's no big thing. Don't know how we're even supposed to get to the other side of the universe for this Macran crystal. Yeah, so that's exactly what Gambit and the externals are. That's their mission. That Bishop fella keeps babbling about, let alone getting back. So they've got two suicide type missions. And then there's the question of whether there might be a tender moment between them, but it's interrupted by Blink, who brings Charles out to his mother and makes the point, Nanny's being upgraded in preparation for the Sentinel evac. Thought you as his mother, you'd want to keep an eye on your son, since his father, your husband, is busy prepping the others, unless you want me to. But Rogue gets the point, so she takes Charles in her arms and she wishes Remy good luck. And Remy gets that he was deliberately interrupted by Blink, so he says, feel better, petite? And she says, not while you're still alive. Good news then, as he jumps off. the edge of the cliffside here, because don't look like I'm going to be that way for much longer. And at this point, interestingly, we have the return of Dan Green to the inks, and especially for these two pages. So these are great. I really like these pages visually. They really pop because of the colors of Magneto's costume, but also there's just great work here in terms of the lighting by Madureira and Green. And I love the work by Green here on the plasterboard that's crumbling off the walls here in Ororo's attic in the X Mansion. And so we've got Magneto here thinking back. Is this where it began for you, old friend? Is this where you came as a child to dream your dream so long ago, Charles Xavier? You'd look up at the stars convinced you could change the entire world. In Israel, in our youth, I once questioned just how much one man was capable of accomplishing. By your absence, you've answered that question. So he's lost in his thoughts when he's interrupted by this figure in dark silhouette here, and it's Nightcrawler. So Nightcrawler says he and his son Holocaust are doing everything they can to divide our forces on this, the eve of our most ambitious effort ever. So here we get a little insight into what's going on in the rest of the Age of Apocalypse world and the different teams. So Magneto says in response to Nightcrawler, nothing will stop us from working with the Eurasian High Council to liberate the human populace along the northeastern coast. So we'll get more on that in Amazing X-Men #1. Rest assured we will. And Kurt interrupts again. He says, it's more than that, Eric. It is this Bishop fellow they've planted in order to prompt you to doubt. You who never doubted all these years. This is why you've asked me and my mother to track down a woman named Destiny in a place that may or may not exist. And that is going to get explored in the Excalibur series, starting with issue 1. And Kurt continues, from what I understand, Peter and Katya have been dispatched to Seattle, and that gets carried on in Generation Next #1. So you've got all these little kind of hints here in the dialogue between, or signpostings rather is a better phrase, in the dialogue here between Magneto and Nightcrawler in terms of what else is going on in this world, and also the different series to follow for those different adventures. So Magneto responds, a question, old friend. Yeah, says Kurt, do you trust me? So he says, yes, he does. Then trust me when I say that I'm less afraid of Bishop being a hoax than I am that he represents the truth. So, and then he thinks back to his hazy memory of the pivotal moment 20 years before when Legion killed his father, Charles Xavier, and Magneto says he's the vaguest recollection, a black man on the periphery who must have wandered away in the aftermath. My only concern was for my friend, cradling his lifeless body in my arms. I made a promise to the man, a promise, I don't doubt, which changed the direction of my entire life. A promise to make the world a better place. A promise I will see kept. So Nightcrawler says, even if it means giving up our lives and that of those we love, yes, Kurt, even if. God help us all, even if. And then the scene switches to the hangar bay, and Rogue is making ready to take off in a ship to go to Chicago to stop Holocaust. And Pietro comes along and says, it's insanity to think the three of you can stop a culling by yourselves. But Rogue has got company in the form of Sabretooth and Wildchild. And Sabretooth makes the point here that he and Wildchild used to run with Holocaust. So they've got something personal invested in taking on Holocaust. And he also makes the point, sides nobody lives forever as well. So Rogue's got a little team building there to go to Chicago and stop Holocaust. Also at this point, we still have Dan Green on the inks here. I like this panel where they're mostly in silhouette, except for details of Quicksilver's costume and Rogue's shock of white hair as well. Nice work on these pages by Madureira, who really, as I said earlier, has become a remarkable penciler and artist in his own right. And now we're back for the rest of the issue to Tim Townsend on inks. This is a nice upshot here angle of Magneto as it appears, Sunfire, Quicksilver and Rogue. So really excellent command of perspective and anatomy in this particular panel by Madureira. So Sunfire limps his way to the ship. He's going to Chicago too. And then we have this moment between Magneto and his son where Magneto says, "I'm leaving the rest of the X-Men in your care, Pietro." Quicksilver is surprised. He says, "But father, your place is here, yes, any other day of the year, but these are dire times if we don't make it back. I'm going to need you to remind the others about our goals, to remind them no sacrifice is too great, but most of all, remind them to floss." So that gets Quicksilver's surprise, and then we have this reveal here. It would have been better if it was on a different page, so that we didn't see it coming, but we've got Morph here with these big, what would we say, cartoon lips, kissing Pietro. And of course, so Morph in this series is very much the comic relief, and comic relief needed because the grimness of the world. So Pietro goes after Morph here, but Morph basically evades him and heads onto the ship. And then Rogue and Quicksilver have a laugh about Morph's original ridiculous costume. And then the laughter dies down. "It's serious business. Did you say goodbye to my father?" "No," she says. "I'll never say goodbye, because that would imply we'd never see each other again, and that will never happen." So Quicksilver bids his stepmother Godspeed, Rogue, and she says, "Thank you, Pietro, we'll be back." That's a nice page. And the dialogue is nicely handled as well by Lobdell. And the style of the ship here is interesting too, this kind of spherical ship that they are aboard and en route to Chicago. And of course here we got the benefit of the digital coloring as well, with the full moon in the background. So really nice work from the entire creative team here on this issue. And then we're at the last page, and Bishop steps forward into the hangar and asks Pietro, why are they throwing their lives away? What do they propose to do? What they propose to do would seem impossible. So Pietro makes the point, you need to ask Bishop, you who claim to come from a place where the sacred Xavier and his X-Men have actually made a difference. Is this then the reality you're asking us to recreate? A world populated by cowards? So Bishop says there isn't much he can clearly recall, just that this place is wrong. And Pietro says, well, this may not be much of a world, may not even be the world it is supposed to be, but it is our world nonetheless, and we will fight for it. In the final panel, Bishop, looking serious, says quietly, indeed, and I'm certain the Professor wouldn't have it any other way. So he does have a memory of Professor X and the world that ought to have been, had Legion not gone back in time to kill Magneto, but accidentally ended up killing his father. Really nice work on this page too, by Madureira, inked by Tim Townsend here on the last page. So there we go. This is the first issue proper outside of X-Men Alpha of the Age of Apocalypse series of titles. And here we have this information two-pager on this particular world and some of the creative teams involved in bringing the various different titles to us. We have a list of them here, Astonishing X-Men, all the way down to X-Men Chronicles. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different titles for readers to pick up monthly. So really kind of raiding readers' wallets back in 1995. We also have this very interesting map here of the world of the Age of Apocalypse, and we can see that there's been nuclear detonations that's destroyed the northwest coast here of South America. Central America is gone. There was a detonation over here in the Arabian Peninsula as well. So it's a radioactive zone. And there is a wall here separating Canada from North America, the USA as well. So interesting stuff just to pay attention to all the different details of this map and what it implies about the different 20 years of history in this particular world. So that is the end of the issue. I do hope you enjoyed this review and commentary on Astonishing X-Men #1. If you did, please like the video on YouTube. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.